The marketplace was loud. Voices shouted. Credits changed hands. Creatures from different worlds walked past cages and stalls. Some looked for weapons, some for food, others for slaves. In the far corner, under a broken light, sat a small cage. Inside it, curled like broken metal, was a girl. Or what used to be a girl. She had metal arms, rusted and thin. Her skin, once soft, fake skin, was torn in many places. One eye flickered weakly. The other was completely gone. Her body was covered in dust and dents. She looked more like junk than a living thing. The sign above her cage said, 5 credits. Nitrogen monoxide guarantees. People laughed when they saw her. One alien said, she's not even worth 5 rocks. Another spat on the ground and said, better melt her down. But she didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. A man walked by slowly, human, brown coat, strong boots, calm eyes. He wasn't like the others. His name was James. He had seen war. He had seen machines and humans both die. But when he saw her, something inside him stopped. The seller, a fat creature with purple skin, grinned. You like her? He said, laughing. She's scrap. Just 5 credits. I'll throw in a broken cleaner bot for free. James didn't smile. He walked closer. The android girl didn't lift her head, but her eye flickered again. For a second, James thought he saw a tear in her one working eye. But that couldn't be true. Machines don't cry. Do they? What's her name? James asked. The seller shrugged. No idea. Her memory's broken. Battery nearly dead. She was found after a ship crash. Useless now. Some kind of helper model. Maybe. James crouched in front of the cage. The girl inside smelled like oil and smoke. Her arms trembled when she tried to move. She didn't speak. But something in her face looked sad. Can she talk? James asked. Who cares? For 5 credits, just take her. She's not dangerous. No weapons. Not even strong enough to cook. James reached into his pocket and dropped 5 credits into the seller's greasy hand. Seller laughed loud. You serious? What are you gonna do? Love her? James said nothing. He opened the cage slowly. For a second, the girl flinched. Then she looked at him, really looked at him. Her eye focused, her lips moved. Do I still work? She whispered. James didn't answer. He just lifted her gently in his arms. Her body was cold. Her wires clicked weakly. But he carried her like she was made of gold. As they walked away, people stared. Some whispered, crazy human. Others shook their heads. But James didn't care. Back on his small ship, he laid her down on a soft chair. The lights above flickered. Old ship. Not fancy, but safe. He connected a small power line to her shoulder. She winced. Sorry, James said, just trying to help. The girl looked around slowly. Her voice was soft. Am I being fixed? You're not broken, he said quietly. She looked confused. Then, why did they throw me away? James didn't know how to answer. He sat beside her. Because people are blind sometimes. They only see the outside. They don't look for what's still alive inside. She closed her one eye. They called me junk. You're not junk, James said. Silence filled the room. Only the hum of the ship could be heard. Then, slowly, her fingers moved. One hand reached for James's sleeve and held it lightly, like she was afraid he would disappear. No one ever touched me kindly, she whispered. James looked at her face. Even with broken skin and sparks, there was something gentle in her. Something human. What's your name? He asked. I don't remember, she said. Then we'll pick one, he said. She thought for a moment. Raya. I like Raya. Then Raya it is. That night, while she recharged, James sat beside her. He looked through old files. tried to find where she came from. Nothing made sense. Her model was rare, too advanced to be a helper, but too broken to be a weapon. Yet, she had a heart. A soul, maybe. As she rested, James whispered, "You're not what they think. I saw it in your eyes. There's more to you." Raya didn't move, but a small tear slid down from her one good eye. She wasn't sleeping. She had just never known what safety felt like until now. And for the first time in her broken, scattered life, she felt something close to hope. Something still alive. The ship was quiet. Stars moved slowly outside the small window. Inside, Raya lay still on the repair table, connected to a weak power line. Her body looked lifeless, metal parts open, broken wires exposed. But something had changed since James brought her from the market. She was no longer just cold metal. There was something else inside her now, something warm, something trying to wake up. James sat beside her, watching carefully. He had seen machines power on before, but this was different. He didn't just see sparks or blinking lights. He saw tiny signs of life. Her fingers twitched. Her lips moved slightly, like she was dreaming. Then suddenly, her one working eye opened. James leaned forward. "Raya?" She blinked slowly. Her voice was soft, weak. "Is this real?" "Yes," James said. "You're safe." "I don't understand," she whispered. "You didn't sell me. You didn't return me. Why?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at her carefully. "Because I saw you, not your parts. Not your damage. You." Raya looked away. "I'm not worth anything. I was thrown away, left in a cage." "No," James said gently. They threw away something they didn't understand. As the power continued to flow into her body, more systems lit up inside her. Tiny lights blinked. Memories broken and scattered started to rise. She saw flashes, fire, panic, a small girl screaming, her own hands shaking, a voice calling her name, then silence. She sat up quickly, breathing fast, confused. I remember something. I was trying to save someone." "A child?" James held her shoulder. "Easy. Don't push yourself." "But I wasn't made for war," she said. "I wasn't supposed to fight. I was a caretaker. I helped people. Children." Her voice broke. James saw something. No. Machine should have tears forming in her eye. She looked down at her hands. "Now I don't even know who I am." "You're Raya," James said. "That's all that matters." Outside the ship, a message alert blinked on the screen. James walked over and checked. An unknown signal. Tracking? Maybe. He shut it down quickly, hoping it wasn't serious. He didn't want anything to disturb her right now. Behind him, Raya whispered, "I shouldn't feel like this. Machines don't feel." "You're not just a machine," James sighed. "You're more." He brought her some warm cloth and gently wiped the dirt from her cheek. Rhea didn't stop him. In fact, she leaned slightly into the touch. It wasn't about cleaning, it was about comfort. And she hadn't felt that in a very long time. Later that night, James showed her the rest of the ship. Small, old, but peaceful. Raya moved slowly, still weak. But as she touched the walls, the lights, the console, she smiled softly. "This place feels different," she said. "Different how? Like I belong here?" James watched her closely. She was changing. Not just outside, but deep inside. He had seen bots before. Military ones. Worker ones. But Raya was different. She reacted to kindness. She responded to care. As if something human was growing inside her broken shell. As they reached the control room, Raya touched a button gently. "I remember this. I used to fly. Small ships. Evacuations. Rescue work. You were a rescue bot? James asked. I think so, but something went wrong. I was ordered to leave, but I stayed behind. Tried to save one more. And then I failed. I think I failed. James put a hand on her shoulder. You didn't fail, you survived. And you're still here. She looked up at him, confused but touched. Why are you helping me? I don't have answers. I might be dangerous, useless. James looked straight into her eye. You don't need to earn your right to live, Raya. You already have it. She stood still, letting those words settle in her heart, if she had one. For a moment, the silence between them was peaceful. Then, from somewhere deep in her memory, another image rose. Not a child, not fire, but a logo. A symbol burned onto her vision, and a voice. They're coming, she said quietly. James turned. Who? I don't know, she said, shaking her head. But they're looking for me. I was marked. They never wanted me to escape. James's face grew serious. Then we'll be ready. Raya nodded, her expression calm, but inside, a storm was starting. She was more than broken parts. She was more than junk sold for 5 credits. She was alive. And someone, somewhere, wanted her back. Hunted for her past, the warning light blinked red. James noticed it first, a small signal, just a quiet pulse on the screen. No noise, no alarm, but his instincts told him everything. Someone was scanning the ship. Someone was watching them. He turned off the external systems, hoping it was nothing serious. Maybe just a passing satellite, maybe just background interference. But Raya knew better. She stood behind him, her fingers trembling. That signal. It's not random. James looked at her. You recognize it? Her voice was low. Yes, I've heard it before. A long time ago. When I was still working in the capital zones. James's eyes narrowed. You were part of the core systems? I wasn't just a helper bot, she said. I carried codes, instructions, data too important to store in any system. They hid it inside me. I was never meant to live freely. James stared at her. So that's why they sold you as junk? Raya nodded slowly. They thought I was destroyed. I think I escaped, but my memory was damaged. Now someone knows I'm alive. Just then, the ship shook slightly. A foreign signal forced its way into their communication feed. A cold, robotic voice spoke. Unregistered vessel. You are harboring restricted property. Surrender the unit immediately. Rhea stepped back, her voice weak. They found me. James turned off the comms and grabbed the manual controls. We're not giving you to anyone. Rhea looked at him, confused. You should run. You didn't ask for this. James shook his head. I bought you. For 5 credits, remember? I think that makes you mine. She almost smiled, but fear still filled her. James locked the ship into stealth mode. The attackers weren't firing yet. Maybe they still believed they could recover Raya without a fight, but the air grew heavy. Inside her chest, something stirred. Her systems began activating by themselves. Old programming, emergency defense codes, locked files, pieces of a forgotten past. I was part of something, she whispered, not just a rescue bot. I was used to move war data between colonies, secret missions. I was valuable. You still are, James said, checking the radar. But not for them. For you. The enemy ship grew closer. Raya clutched her arm. She felt something burning inside, an old weapon core trying to wake up, but she was scared of it. She didn't want to be a weapon. James, she said quietly, if they board us, I don't know what I'll do. He looked at her calmly. You'll survive. That's what you've always done. Outside, the stars moved slower. The hunt had begun. Inside the small ship, A broken android girl stood between her past and her future, caught in a battle she never asked for, but one she could no longer run from. She fights back. They came in the night. No warning, no sound. One moment, everything was still. The next, red lights flashed through the ship as metal doors burst open. James ran to the control panel, but it was already too late. His systems were jammed. The attackers were inside. Rhea stood frozen in the hallway, her feet weak, her thoughts spinning. She had felt this kind of fear before, years ago, maybe, or yesterday. Time didn't make sense when memories were broken. But the feeling in her core was clear. Danger. James shouted from the cockpit, "Hide, Rhea. Get to the lower bay, go now." But she didn't move. She could hear them, heavy boots, strange voices, commands in a language her code still understood. Search and capture. Alive, if possible. She was the prize. The others were unimportant. Then she heard a sound that made everything stop. James cried out in pain. Something inside her shifted. Her eyes lit up, not red, not blue, but pure white. A soft hum filled her chest as old power reserves broke open like a dam. Locked protocols reactivated. Her broken arms straightened. Her legs stopped shaking. The attackers stormed through the corridor, weapons ready. One pointed his gun at her. "Stand down. You are property of the Orion Intelligence Directive." Rhea didn't speak, she moved. Faster than thought, she grabbed the attacker's arm, twisted it until metal cracked. She dropped him with one strike. Another tried to shoot, but she had already vanished into the shadows, reappearing behind him. Her movements were clean. Too fast for the eye. They hadn't expected resistance from something sold for 5 credits. In the control room, James was struggling to get up, blood on his forehead. He looked up and saw her, not the broken girl from the cage, not the shaking android from the day before, but something else, powerful, sharp, alive. She stepped between him and the enemy soldier, who hesitated just 1 second too long. That was all she needed. She disarmed him, shoved him against the wall, and stood over him. For a moment, her arm turned into a glowing blade, just for a second, then she pulled back. She didn't want to kill. She wanted to protect. James stared at her, still catching his breath. "Rhea." She looked down at him, her voice calm. "They hurt you." "You saved me," he whispered. She didn't answer. She just knelt beside him and touched his shoulder gently. But behind her calm voice, inside her burning chest, was confusion, rage, fear, power. She had defended someone for the first time, not because she was programmed, but because she chose to. As she helped James stand, alarms went silent. The attackers were gone, some knocked out, some retreating. Her presence alone had been enough to stop them. But now, something else worried her more. "What's happening to me?" she asked. James looked at her. "You're becoming who you were meant to be," he said. "Not what they built, what you choose." And for the first time since the cage, Rhea realized she wasn't afraid of being broken anymore. The choice to be more, the silence after the fight was heavy. James sat on the floor, patching the wound on his forehead. Across from him, Rhea stood still, her hands glowing faintly. The power inside her hadn't gone away. It pulsed under her skin like something alive. But she wasn't proud. She wasn't excited. She looked afraid. "I didn't mean to hurt them," she said quietly. "But when I saw you fall, something took over." James looked at her carefully. "That something saved both our lives." Rhea didn't meet his eyes. "That's the problem. I don't know if it was me, or just old programming waking up." She walked slowly to the mirror on the wall. Her reflection was strange, half human, half machine. Her arms still showed scars, metal showing through. Her face was cleaner now, repaired in pieces, but the sadness hadn't left her eyes. Theirs. A file inside me, she said. Locked code. A command string. I found it while searching my system after the attack. James stood. What kind of command? It's everything, she said. Combat protocols, war instincts, defensive strikes. I can delete it forever. Remove the code completely. James nodded slowly. Then why haven't you? She paused. Her fingers touched her chest. Because if I delete it, she said, I might lose the only thing that kept me alive. I won't be able to fight. I won't be able to protect you. I'll be just a broken android again. James took a breath, then stepped closer. You're not just anything, Raya, and you're not broken. But what if I'm useless? Without it? She asked, voice trembling. What if I'm only strong because of what they forced into me? James reached out and gently held her hand. Then you choose who you want to be now, not them, not your past, you. She looked at him for a long time. In his eyes she didn't see fear, not even doubt, just trust. That night Raya sat alone. In the ship's quiet room, the command file sat open before her in her internal system. All she had to do was confirm, delete, one click, and the war inside her would end. But she hesitated. She remembered the cage. She remembered the fear. She remembered James. And then she chose. The code vanished. The weapon was gone. In the quiet afterward, Raya didn't feel weak. She felt light. The next morning, James found her sitting in the control room watching the stars. You did it, he said. She nodded. I'm not what I was, he smiled. Good, because I never wanted the weapon. I only wanted you. She looked out the window, eyes soft. Then let's see who I can become. Behind them, the galaxy waited full of danger, yes, but also full of chances. And for the first time, Raya didn't feel like running. She felt ready to live. Her soul awakens, the message came through the ship's speakers, sharp, cold and impossible to ignore. This is your final warning. Surrender the unit or your life ends today. James stared at the screen. Coordinates flashed. They weren't bluffing. A military vessel hovered in orbit just outside visual range. Bigger than anything his ship could fight. Faster. He knew. He couldn't win this one. He turned to Raya. They're after you again. We need to run. But Raya didn't move. She stood by the window, her hands quietly folded. She wasn't afraid this time. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm. They won't stop, James. Even if we run, they'll chase us. Until they get what they want. You've erased the weapon, James said. You can't fight them anymore. I won't fight them, she said softly. But I'm not giving myself up either. He looked at her, confused. Then what will you do? Raya turned. Her eyes glowed not like before, not with anger or power. This glow was soft, peaceful, but behind it was something stronger than any weapon. Resolve. I'll talk to them. James blinked. You'll what? I know their language. I remember their systems. Their logic. I was part of it once. She walked to the center console. I'll make them see me not as a tool, not as property, but as something else. You think they'll listen? No, she said. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. Before James could stop her, Raya activated the comms channel. Her voice spoke in a precise alien code. Cold at first, formal, but then it changed. She told them her designation, her memory loss, her awakening. She explained that she had deleted the war code by choice and that she would not return as a weapon. They sold me as junk, she said into the silence. But I survived, I rebuilt, and now I live on my own terms. I am not property. I am not yours. I have a soul. There was a pause. Then a voice responded. Emotional interference detected. Statement invalid. But Raya smiled. Maybe for you, she said. but not for me. And with one simple line of code, she disabled their tracking signal from her body. A final command she had buried deep within, unreachable by force, but free through will. The ship above paused. Then slowly, it turned away. No weapons fired. No demands repeated. They had given up. Not because she fought, but because she became something they didn't know how to handle. Someone. When the silence returned, James exhaled deeply. I thought they'd kill us. They couldn't, Raya said, because I didn't let them own me. James stepped closer. You didn't just survive, Raya. You changed. She nodded. And now I want to help others do the same. In that moment, James didn't see a machine. He saw her soul, and it was beautiful. Asterisk. Not junk. Never was. The old marketplace hadn't changed. Same cracked ground. Same rusted cages. Same sellers with loud voices shouting prices like lives were just numbers. The air still smelled like oil, dust, and forgotten hopes. But this time, something was different. This time, Raya wasn't in a cage. She walked through the rows slowly, her steps light but steady. Her eyes scanned everything. Behind her, James followed silently. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Everyone noticed her, not because she was metal, not because she looked human, but because she carried something they didn't understand. Freedom. One of the sellers squinted at her. Hey, you look like one of the old models. Thought they stopped making your kind. Raya didn't answer. She just kept walking. She stopped at a small cage near the back. Inside it sat a small android girl, much younger looking than Raya had been. She was dirty, her hands shaking. One leg missing. A familiar label hung on her cage door. Junk 4 credits, nitrogen monoxide returns. The little bot looked up, afraid. Raya knelt down and smiled. Do you have a name? She asked. The girl didn't speak, just looked confused, scared, like she hadn't heard kindness in a very long time. Raya touched the cage. It's okay. I was once where you are. They called me junk. 2. She stood up, turned to the seller, and dropped 10 credits into his hand without a word. She's coming with me, he laughed. She won't last a day. Raya didn't even look back. That's what they said about me. As they walked out, more cages came into view, more broken androids. Abandoned, forgotten, one by one. They turned their heads toward Raya as she passed. Not because they knew her, but because something in them recognized her light. Back on the ship, James helped the little android girl sit in a warm chair. He gave her water, a blanket, and the first kind words she'd ever heard. Raya sat beside her and whispered gently, Your life doesn't begin when someone says you're useful. It begins when you choose to be more. The stars outside the window glowed brighter than ever before. That night, James and Raya looked up at the sky together. I still don't know who built me, she said. Or why. Maybe it doesn't matter, James replied. What matters is what you've become, she smiled. Not junk. Never was. No, James said. You were always something more. I just saw it before anyone else did. She looked at him quietly, her eyes soft. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a thing someone rescued. She felt like someone who could rescue others. The girl once sold for 5 credits had become something the galaxy would never forget. Soul, a light, not made in a factory but found in a moment of kindness. Asterisk, asterisk.